You're listening to Monday Science Podcast, the show that brings you the latest in science, technology, and health with your host, me, Dr. Bahija Raimi Abraham.
Hello, welcome back to Monday Science. I hope you're having a great start to the week, a great start to the day, or whatever time you're listening to today's episode. So, I've been reflecting and I realize I haven't really been sharing information pretty much about myself, but also other podcasts that I've been on. And I've been on quite a few over the last few months. I was on a podcast called First Blood. First Blood is a podcast about periods and it's hosted by Ella Woods. It was a very, very interesting experience for me. And Ella is absolutely amazing. We talked about many different things, careers. I randomly confessed how Tim Westwood was once my style icon at university. It's a bit of a weird time, or it was a weird time, sorry. But actually, why I was on the podcast was to talk about how some people's periods and their cycles had been affected due to COVID-19, and then also like a wider topic about women's health around this time. So that's really it was really interesting experience and really good episode. I'll put the episode links for all the different podcasts I've been on. The second one I went on was the King's College London Careers podcast for PhD students and research staff at King's, and it's called Careers in Your Ears. And I talk about well, the title is From Acting to Academia, and I talk a little bit about power dynamics in academia. That was a very interesting one for me as well. And then lastly, a couple of weeks ago, I think, I was on the Naked Scientist podcast. So that's it's a 1 hour audience interactive science radio talk show that is broadcast live on BBC in the east of England, also on BBC Radio 5 internationally in Australia as well, and other countries, and it's like an award-winning podcast. So I was on there talking about many different things. Actually, we were talking about flu season, impact of fake medicines, and how this was relevant to COVID-19. A little bit on like the future of healthcare, and I was talking about AI. Talked a bit about SteamEd Collective and Monday Science. So yeah, I was sort of been busy past few months. So I'll put the the podcast episode links in the description. You can take a look. But I have taken on board some of the comments and feedback. Thank you so much around showcasing a little bit more about the research group and my research and what I do outside of Monday Science. So please expect that to be coming up. We're going to be starting a new show in the week. That's going to share that with you next week. Look out for an episode next week, Thursday, a special episode, more to follow. Okay, so let's get on with the rest of the episode. Let's start off with the Monday Science Person of the Week. Now, this Monday Science Person of the Week is somebody that I don't think gets enough recognition, even though probably he does. This is Sir Professor Tim Berners-Lee, and he invented the World Wide Web in 1989 whilst he was working at CERN, which is the European Organization for Nucleic Research in Switzerland. And Sir Tim Berners-Lee is a English computer scientist. He's a professor at University of Oxford and also MIT. So the web was originally conceived and developed to meet the demands for an automated information sharing platform between scientists in universities and institutes around the world. And this was the project that Sir Professor Berners-Lee was working on. So the World Wide Web, that's why we have www.mondaysciencepodcast.com. And so he'd been working on this, and then on the 30th of April 1993, CERN put the World Wide Web software in the public domain. And then later, CERN made a release with an open license, obviously with Professor Berners-Lee's approval. And so that's why we actually have the internet for free. So, well, www dot for free. So I think I mean, the internet is what, 32 years now. And you know, if we probably can't imagine a life without the internet. And if you think about from having the World Wide Web and having web pages and things like that to what we have now, is pretty amazing. So just wanted to acknowledge his amazingness and the fact that we have this all for free. Um, So yeah, thank you to Sir Professor Tim Berners-Lee. So, in recent news, the FDA, that's the regulatory body in America, has not actually approved a new drug to treat Alzheimer's disease since 2003. In an effort to end this, there's a company called Eli Lilly. I used to be obsessed with this company when I was a student. I thought they were really fantastic. It's a pharmaceutical company. Thought the work they were doing was amazing. They've developed a new drug called the Nanomab, which is an antibody designed to clear deposits of amyloid beta peptides that form plaques in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's disease. Just a little tip, when you see a drug and it has MAB at the end, that stands for monoclonal antibody. So that's just a way to be able to tell, okay, what kind of drug is it, the therapeutic class and everything. Okay, so back to the news. So at an international conference on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, which was held earlier on this month, researchers from Lilly announced the phase 2 trial results, which showed that their drug slowed the progression of Alzheimer's disease. They published their findings in the New England Journal of Medicine earlier on this month, and they found from it was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled phase 2 trial which assessed the safety and adverse effects and efficacy of donanemab, and this showed some promise. So they found that patients who received the drug had better cognitive function than those taking the placebo, but they still experienced loss in performance. So whilst these are promising results, it's still quite far from a cure. And when looking at their secondary endpoints, which was clearance of amyloid plaques and a slowing of tau pathology, this was improved in patients taking the drugs. Unfortunately, the findings were not statistically significant when compared to the placebo group, which is unfortunately leaving some people unconvinced. So, it's promising. Hopefully, there's more work that goes into this, and the fight doesn't stop against Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Okay, so today's episode is a follow-on episode from my conversation with Dr. Faith last week. This episode, we're talking about diversity or lack thereof in STEM, and this conversation is really. It was. I don't. You see, I'm even struggling to find the words. It was quite therapeutic for me because I do talk about the fact that I've found it quite difficult to talk about race and just I guess my own personal experience and feelings, which I do share a little bit in this episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Let us know what you think. Feel free to get in touch via email info@mondaysciencepodcast.com, or you can also get in touch with us via our social media. The other aspect that the other part of I was gonna say the other part of you, that sounds really weird. The other hat. I don't really know how to segue into this. Let's see. The other thing I know about you is the work that you do around like advocating for greater diversity in STEM. And I also want to say another thank you because I know you, if I say I know, obviously I know, you included me in one of your social media campaigns, which was highlighting Black STEM professionals and the work they were doing. So I really thank you once again for that, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do here. You don't know the anxiety it took for me to send the information. I was like, what do I put? Who am I? I don't know. Imposter syndrome at its best. But so yeah, thank you for a lot of work. And I think that whole thing that you did on Twitter went viral, didn't it? You had a
It's quite
lot of
surprising.
yeah, because I remember it was just I would get all these notifications for my own post. Thank you again. But you really gained a lot of traction. So it really highlighted that there was a need for that visibility. I
Yeah.
don't know, how was that experience for you?
It was such an interesting experience because it was a period in my life where I was just, I was finishing my PhD. I posted that first tweet, I think, on the day before I was handing in my PhD thesis. And it was just a period in my life where I was just sitting there going, I want to do a postdoc. I want to continue in science. But why is there no one that looks like me that I can talk to? It was like not a moment of crisis, but that moment of like, can we do science? And I think I was searching for the information and I was searching for someone to talk to about this whole experience. And I think at that time I was like, I need to do my own research because clearly these things are not being shown to me. So I need to go out of my way to find people. And I started looking for people within science or people who were doctors or what great things that people had done in the past. And as I was looking, I wanted to keep myself accountable because, I'm like anyone. If I don't have something that's tying me down, it's not going to happen. I would have done one thing and that would have been it. So I decided I would tweet it every day. It was in line with Black History Month. And I was like, yeah, we'll go. So I started tweeting them every single day. I was learning more and I was tweeting it out as well. And for me, it was an amazing experience because yes, like you said, there clearly was a need for it because a lot of people responded. But for me, it also let me know that there were so many scientists out there who were Black that I just did not know about. It for me created a community and a network of Black scientists. Even within Imperial, where I was, I suddenly was finding people that I'd never heard of. I heard about Professor Christopher Jackson, who he is amazing. But he's been at Imperial the whole time. Okay, he's in geology, so I understand that our paths probably would not come across. But I was just like, there's a professor here at Imperial. No one's mentioning that. And I think for me, it was just creating that network of scientists that I could look up to. And from off the back of that, I feel like I've been able to meet so many scientists who were Black, not just at the level that I was at, but also more senior. And yeah, and the tweets went viral. And off the back of that, I feel like I've been able to get more involved with projects around STEM as well. So for me, it was an amazing experience. And I'm so happy I sent that first tweet because yes, I got lots of traction on Twitter, which was great. But for me, it was more than that. It was able to create this network for myself and also get a bit, yeah, just learn more about what is actually possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because those sorts of conversations around visibility, and I think even with visibility, it's one word with so many different facets. It's individuals taking some sort of stand to be more visible, but then it's also on an institutional level, their
Mm,
responsibility to make sure that they are representing all aspects of their faculty, their staff,
mm,
and showcasing what people are doing all round, and I think
yeah.
it really is a big question because there's a lot of talk around, when it comes to taking promotional photographs for organizations, you know that various
Yeah.
people who wear various different diversity hats or intersectionalities, you get called out. Oh, can you take a photo here? Ding. Can
Yeah.
you do this? And do you tick this box to take a photo? But then when it comes to the you know the ins and outs of that organization, what happens on a day-to-day basis, there isn't much diversity in the staffing or things like that, which is a big problem, especially in academia and in
It's
STEM in
it's
general, but in academia.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one of those things, exactly what you said. It's that tokenism of, I need you now, please come to the front. And it's so hard as an individual as well, because you're sitting there going, you know what, I would like to attract more people like me to my organization. So I will post that picture. But at the same time, you're like, I shouldn't have to post this picture. Um, and I remember talking to someone who they were moving from, I think it was New Zealand to where I work now. And they had seen the pictures of where I work now, and they're like, I was expecting such a diverse organization. I chose the crick over somewhere else because I was like, yeah, everyone is welcome here. And then they got there, and it's like, the reality behind the door is not the same.
Yeah,
Let's be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and I think it's a problem that people need to, well, I say people need to address. It's a conversation that's always ongoing. Like
Mm,
it's just making sure that what organizations are portraying is a true reflection. Because also, as you've even highlighted, sometimes people pick that organization on that based on that choice. They're like, oh, I
mm,
really, and it doesn't have to be even specifically that even maybe a Black person wants to be in an environment where there are only Black people. It could even be somebody of a different race that just wants to be in
yeah,
a diverse environment. I think a lot of people want to be in diverse environments, but
yeah,
if
of
there's
course.
false advertising around what that environment looks like versus the reality when you enter, I think that's really bad. um
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
and so I guess actually on that point, what do you think are the most important actions that STEM and wider communities can do moving forward to include and promote more diversity in their spaces?
Yeah, and I think this is such an interesting question, especially in the time that we're in right now, because I think a lot of people have suddenly discovered race as a concept
Sorry.
after after June. It
Yeah.
has.
Mm,
So like I've seen a lot of statements coming out from lots of universities and a lot of higher institutions. And for me, it's not just what is your statement, it's what are you doing behind the scenes of that. So For me, it's like, looking at your institution and going, what are the specific problems that we have here? Because it's very easy to just go, you know what, we need to promote people. We'll do some very quick actions really quickly to show that we're doing something. But I think what we need institutions to do is really look at themselves. Like, what is our issue here? What can we specifically do within our organization right now that will actually cause change? So one thing that the CRIC has done, which I actually think was actually good. They did a focus group where they took white colleagues, and they also took people from Black backgrounds. They did separate focus groups and spoke to people from that. And then off the back of that, there's now been a report with stuff to actually implement. Now it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm not putting anyone on blast, but like it'll be interesting to see how much of that actually comes forward. But I think it's literally about seeing what you need to do and also looking at the pipeline. So I always talk about the pipeline, and specifically, this is within STEM and what I do, the idea. So we know that if you are an undergraduate student, we are so well represented at undergraduate level. Like I'm Nigerian, science is key. Like, science, medicine, these kind of careers are what we're after.
I feel like, especially with a Nigerian background, it's like
Yeah.
the first moment you can talk. What do you want to be? Doctor.
Yeah, doctor. Exactly. Exactly.
What do you want
It's
to
one of
be?
those things.
Engineer.
Yeah.
What do you want to be?
Yeah.
Accountant.
Exactly. And you know what? We go hard into STEM. These are respected career paths. But then you know what? How many people then go on and do a PhD? The drop off is vast. So the pool is already small. And then I also see that when you're recruiting for these kind of positions, you're thinking, oh, who should we select for our PhD? You go, let's go to Oxford, Cambridge, and Imperial. But we're already not there. Like, most people from Bain backgrounds sadly did not go to Russell Group universities. And if you're looking from the same small pool, that's not helping anyone. You're continuing the problem. So it's thinking about who you're actually recruiting and how you can actually like target that. But at the same time, it's like once people are actually in there, how are you creating a safe environment that makes people want to stay there? Like, are you doing things that are promoting people? So, have you got courses in place that will help people? Are you providing mentorship? But also, are you also thinking maybe this person, we need to provide more than help, but think of like, what are we doing for them? How are we failing our people? Because it's not just about the fact that, as a Black person, you're less likely to get access to funding, you're less likely to get the job that you're after. It's also like, what can I put in place that helps those people? So I have basically what I'm trying to say is I don't have specific answers. I think it's all tailored to the specific situation, but I just think institutes could be doing more. And I think on an individual level, I think it's the idea of, looking at where you are and looking where do I have influence. It's something that I heard Renee Edelod say. It's that idea of, what is my sphere of influence, Okay, you might not be able to change the whole of your university structure, but maybe when you're doing a interview, think, okay, I'm not going to look at Oxford, Cambridge, and Thingy. I'm just going to look at all of them. That's one nugget of change that you can implement as well. Maybe when you're thinking about who you're inviting to give us a talk at your institution, you think, okay, let's look at all the candidates rather than the friend of the friend that I heard of whose research is great. So I think it's just those individual things. And if you look around you and all the people you see around you are exactly the same, ask yourself why. So I think it's little bits like that.
Definitely.
You
And
do.
as you, I mean, the starting point of people have only discovered race in 2020 is a
Mm,
very loaded
yeah.
comment. And it's interesting because it's funny, actually. I guess on the podcast, I've not ever this year for some reason, but I don't think it's not deliberate. Race hasn't, it's not it's not to say
Mm,
I represent race, by the way. It's just that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've not actually really because last year for me was very, very triggering.
Mm,
Many, I think, for many people in general, but
mm,
I feel particularly for Black people, it was a lot more than ever,
mm,
because every year
mm,
is usually a trigger. But last year
mm,
in particular, there was a lot going on, and I found it very hard personally to talk about race and to talk about
mm,
the impact of just being myself in a workspace and just living. Sometimes, it's very hard to have those conversations, but that was the time where everybody wanted to know how I felt. And I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
yeah, yeah.
Really, I'm really not there. And I think that there were so many nuggets in what you said, and I'm trying to make sure not necessarily address all of them. There were so many things I resonated with, which is, making sure fairness is important, but it's how making sure the fairness isn't just a tick box exercise,
Mm.
being quote unquote fair just to tick the box.
Yeah,
And I hope that all the energy and action that happened in 2020, I really would like to see more. Well, I say action, let me take back the action, but the energy to do something. Let's see more of that action now. Let's not lose the momentum of trying to
mm,
create um, fair workspaces, safer spaces for people, yeah, it's I don't think people even realize how triggering even just having to talk about race sometimes can be, and the impact it has. And when you
yeah,
see all these, like there were lots of statistics last year because many organizations decided to review how particularly the can I be controversial and say the silencing of B in BAME, and I
mm,
don't really like that acronym anyway, which
mm,
I always say, but really looking at when you break it down, how are Black people being treated in organizations specifically, and
yeah,
what's their trajectory in terms of career progression. And what you said is so true, that at undergraduate level you can see lots of diversity, and as you move further up, especially even up the academic ladder where it's already difficult as it is, then the pool gets smaller and smaller. And so what people probably need to realize is that on top of doing the day job, one also has to deal with microaggressions that
mm,
happen all the time, even if people don't realize that they're doing it, but sometimes they do.
yeah,
Microaggression is just it's like the bread and butter of a daily experience. And I don't think people realize that sometimes, what, I don't have the energy to maybe do anything else because I'm trying to protect my own mental health in
yeah,
a day-to-day basis. And
yeah,
I don't think people get that. So yeah. And on the statistics, and when we're talking specifically about academia, again, it's interesting because as pharmacist background, but I always knew of one pharmacy professor, and I didn't realize that this is Ijeoma Ujegbu. I didn't realize that she was the only black professor in pharmacy for quite a while. I think there's now two in the UK.
yay. What a
Yeah.
doubling.
Yes, I did it. I mean, I'll check the statistics, but I did it, and it's funny because I'm such a fangirl. Hello, Professor. I think she's amazing, and I didn't. I used to follow her career just as like somebody to look up to, and when I got the opportunity to work at UCL, which is where she's based, I remember the first day I saw her, I was like, so awkward. I was just like, hello. Hi. And she's like, okay, hi. And a very, very amazing and accomplished woman. But this issue that there are fewer than 1%, fewer than, what is it? Fewer than 1% of university professors are Black. Let's talk about that. Why is it important to increase that percentage? Why do you think that percentage is so small?
It's just so important. I always say this as in like when I think of the fact that there's so few people, it makes me so sad because it's like when we talk about me at that point where I was looking up and there was no one there. That's one of the reasons. It's just knowing that we have a full trajectory. So if I'm a young person looking up and I'm thinking about what's my potential, I can see it because you can only like people always like to say you can only be what you can see. You know what you can actually do it if you don't see it, but it's just so much harder. Like it's just so much harder. But I also think it's so important for science as an example anyway, because if we talk about research and you look at the type of research that we actually do, something like sickle cell anemia is so understudied, so understudied. But that's because it predominantly affects people from the Black community. Like, if you're starting your science career and you've got people around you who are affected by that disease, that's going to incentivize you to want to do that research. So we need more diversity of thought on what we're actually researching. So it's not just about helping the progression of people's careers, but it's also about helping the whole of the scientific community expand as a whole as well. I just think it's just important. We need to get more diversity of thoughts and diversity of people so that we as science can progress. Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't know what else to add to that
No,
that answer, but
I
yeah.
mean, amazing. I mean, you saw my reaction when you said sickle cell, because that's a big, need to probably do a whole nother podcast on sickle cell and
Mm,
those the challenges there, in terms of research and support and perceptions and things like that.
mm,
And yeah, you've highlighted the very right thing. Diversity of thought is so important, and it will advance science. It will advance therapeutic innovations and help people and save lives. It's not to sound cheesy, but that's literally the
yeah.
result of just creating better diversity in STEM. So what would be your recommendations or advice for young scientists, especially young Black scientists, going into STEM and biology research, or even immunology?
This is a good question. What advice would I have for a younger person? I'd say, you know what? I always say this to young people, and I'm saying just capture every opportunity. Like, I know, and say yes a lot. I know that sounds counterintuitive sometimes, but it's just that idea. I think sometimes back to me as a young person and when I was applying for university, and I'll use this as an example. So I applied to King's and I applied to Queen Mary. Then I applied to two non-Russell Group universities, but I didn't apply to UCL or Imperial. And the reason I didn't apply, even though they were all asking for the exact same grades, is the fact that I thought, no, I can't do that. Like that's a bit too much. But they were literally all asking for the same grades. So you know what? Sometimes you just have to take opportunity and just say yes. What was the worst that was going to happen in that moment? They would have said no, and I would have gone to one of the other choices. It's one of those things. So I say take every opportunity as it comes, and do not underestimate yourself. That's the key bit at that point. Do not underestimate yourself. I'll say the other thing is if there's something that you're interested in doing, look at who's doing it. And I don't even mean like, is there another Black person doing this necessarily? I mean, literally, what is their career track that has actually taken them there? What can you do to follow that track? I hope that kind of adds. And also, mentorship is important. I think mentorship is really, really, really important. And that mentor, I know we've talked about this behavior before, like that mentor does not have to be a Black woman within science necessarily. It's just someone who can like advocate for you and care about your career. And it's getting that advice from someone that's been there before. They are just talking at you, but they are dropping bombs that just like resonate with you. The things that I've had mentees before and I'm just talking at them and I can see them like getting excited, but I'm just saying what and like, these are nothing to me. I'm just saying stuff, but like it's what they need at that moment. But I just think, yeah, look out for mentorship, take your opportunities and don't underestimate yourself. And like I said, look at if there's something you're interested in doing, look at their career track and even just drop them an email, just a little message on LinkedIn and say, let's have a little chat. I'm interested in what you're doing. People love people talking about what they're doing. It's like, it's such a compliment to have a young person going, I'm really impressed by you. Can we have a chat? Do it. No one, honestly, it's exciting for us and we'll do it.
I
That
know.
would be my advice.
Especially when the reality is one moves away from the bracket of being young, so it's like, you think I'm
Yeah.
cool? Yes,
Yeah.
hello, talk to me. Thank you, all really amazing advice. Thank you for that, because I think a lot of mentorship is so important. As you said, yes, we talk about this to death, and I think understanding that diversity of thought also expands to how you think or who you think your mentor should be as well. I think just being very open to everyone and anything, because you can learn from every single person. I think people need to understand that you could, and that's also for people who are not Black, who might think, oh, I should get just everybody, just get mentorship,
Mhm.
get some support. It will help you in so many ways. You will learn something. I've had so many different mentors. As I always say, they don't always know they're my mentor, but I keep coming back. I'm like, me again, hi. And as you said, the gems, but they're just talking and you're like, wow, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So it's really, really important. Thank you so much for that. What would you say are your key take-home messages? So from everything we've spoken about today, what would be the 1, 2, or 3 things you'd want people to take away?
Oh, that's such an interesting thing. We've talked about so many things today, actually. I think maybe I'll just conclude something from like, I don't know, each area that we've kind of talked about. I think in terms of research and immunology, keep funding science, I want to say right now, because right now with what's happening with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff that's going. I think it's just so important that we really think and value like science and research. And with that, I also mean research funding. So I know right now the government, this is maybe a bit political, but the government has made a massive cut in foreign aid funding, and I know that has a massive impact on areas that we're interested in, so malaria, for example. So I think it's thinking about the bigger picture and not just focusing on the science here within the UK, but also elsewhere, because it does have an impact on the UK as well. So that would be my take home from that. I don't know what we can change here, but hey. The other thing is also thinking about, what we were talking about, the discovery of Black Lives Matter in the last year. Like, we need to really think about how can we actually promote them. And like I said, look at your organization. What can you do personally, and what can you do to lobby your organization for change as well? And I think the third thing I'd say is take your COVID-19 vaccine when it's your turn.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Monday Science podcast. Make sure to visit our website. Details are in the episode description, where you can subscribe to make sure that you never miss the show. So catch up with you next week. Bye.